G'day friends, welcome to today's YouTube video. My name is James, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you are new. Today you are looking at my signature collection of jlbCREATIVE stamp sets. Now I have a lot of information to share just up front with you, so if you want to skip to the part where I'm playing with the new stamp sets, then just keep hopping throughout the video and see wherever that starts. I don't know the timestamp right now, but I'm gonna get on to playing with some of these because these only arrived yesterday and I am yet to actually touch some of these physical products like the new ones, and I'm super excited to get into those. But I want to introduce to you my signature collection of 10 stamp sets. This is sponsored by me. Hashtag yes, I am sponsoring myself. I'm going to give myself a lovely lunch for doing this video. No, I'm kind of putting this out here because I think it's always important to share information first and foremost. But before we get to any of that, I just want to let you know that none of this is essential to your creative happiness. If you're someone that struggles with purchasing things you end up regretting, or you're on a low spend or a no spend, please just skip through all the parts of this video that might be enabling or enticing, because I don't want you to feel like you need these things to have fun. These are just bonuses, and they're just things that I like to use, but I'm also in a very privileged position to be able to create and purchase these things and then sell the rest on a store. So I don't want you to think that these are essential. We do have tutorials that you can follow if this is something you're looking to invest in. Either I think I'm going to put these up in the Etsy store next week, or perhaps in the future if you want to save and wait till then. But yeah, you can live a great life without these. I always say that, and I know people think that that's like, people have told me it's the best reverse marketing technique. I really do believe it though. Like, I have lived a great creative life without any of these things. They do help. Like, some of these things really help, get me to explore other sides of my creativity. Especially the concept stamping is very puzzle play and kind of abstract, which has always been a bit of a struggle for me. So I think they can help, but they're not essential. I think that's a good way to preface all of this, and I just want to say, because Etsy are changing their kind of how they operate, and they're adding that 12% fee in now, which you can't opt out of for their forced affiliate marketing scheme. Look, I'm not going to really share my thoughts on that. Websites change all the time. I got the most out of it while I could. It's just not for me anymore. So I am going to transition to my own website and see what I can create there. I'm very new to it. Like, I'm not a web developer or web designer or anything. So I'm trying to Google as furiously as I can to make it happen. But just so we can get this launched and at least get this first batch out into the open, I will put that on Etsy next week. I'll list it on social media, like on Instagram and Facebook, my Oakmates Creative Outlet Facebook group, linked down below. I will definitely say when these are available in the Etsy store, and that will kind of be the last launch we'll have in there before I close everything and make the move over to my own website. I didn't want to do this on my own website only because I haven't set that up yet, and I really don't know. I haven't ironed out any of the kinks because I've never really tried it before, so I don't want to risk it because this is quite a big, like, there's 10 sets and there's like hundreds of stamps to go out, so I just don't really want to risk anything bad happening. I'll stick with what I know. And yeah, that Etsy thing doesn't really roll around until March 27th or April something. I don't know. I might have dates confused in my head, but sure, we should just beat it. So let's just do that. We'll give our last hurrah to Etsy. But yeah, I'll let you know the exact date and time when I choose that next week. I've got other things to work on, and I will be at Art Journaling the Magical next week as well. So I just bear with me as I kind of juggle things around. I did have this slated for like later in the year. I was not anticipating doing this repackaging, redesign, relabeling, bringing out new things. I wasn't really planning on doing that for this signature collection until a lot later. But after Creativation, we had a few distribution opportunities pop up. So I thought, well, I'll get onto this so that I can at least capitalize on some of those opportunities. Unfortunately, they didn't work out, and not for any other reason than I just decided it would be a bad business decision. Things always sound really glamorous on paper, and some offers can sound really great, but when you crunch numbers, it really just comes down to the fact that, will those numbers work for you, or will they not? And unfortunately, it still makes more sense for me to remain independent because, sometimes you're literally, you know, the difference of a deal, even though it might look really, really great, you might be taking 1/20th of what you would make as an independent. So I really had to weigh those up, and it has taken me like since Creativation until literally a couple of days ago, I have been trying to figure all of this out, and it just didn't make sense. I tried to make it make the most sense, but it just didn't. So sorry about that. I didn't really tell anyone that's what I was doing, because I didn't want to get anyone's hopes up, and it's just for that exact reason. You know, negotiations happen. I can bring what I'm comfortable with, and it's always countered with something, right? And it just didn't work out for me, so I said no to that. Maybe in the future, I'm not closed off to it, but for now, I'm just going to remain independent. So that's where these will be on Etsy, and the only place they'll be is on Etsy for now. But these are signature collections, so they'll stay restocked throughout the year as I can restock them. It was kind of difficult to purchase all 10 sets in a huge quantity up front. It's kind of like when you go live by yourself for the first time, you have to buy like toothpaste, ketchup, mustard, salt, like all those weird incidentals, dishwashing liquid, all those things that you have to put in there, and then, you know, restocking is a lot easier. So this first kind of run, let's just say limited quantities. I'm not going to tell you exactly how many, because I don't want it to be some feeding frenzy on Etsy. But please understand, I do try my best, and that's all we can do. But these, since they are a part of those 10 sets that I will keep stocked as often as I can, you shouldn't really find it too difficult to get your hands on these in the future if you do miss out next week. So let me just talk about which ones are the same, because I don't want you to go and buy the same one if you're planning on doing that. So the concept stamp set, one of my faves, I've created 2 new concepts as well. Concepts 1 is this one here, which we've just called Concepts, and I've got another Concepts 2 and Concepts 3. This is exactly the same. The first one, 6x8 inch, exactly the same stamp set. So the only thing that changed is the packaging is different. I wanted to have a cohesive look between all the packaging. If you looked at the packaging in the past, the small sets had this black and white design on it. This original set had this black and white design. This one had a colorful one for some reason. I just got really fancy. So I wanted to unify it by having the same packaging for everything. So this, sorry, I've picked up the wrong thing there. Concepts is exactly the same, so if you already have one of these, please don't purchase another one unless you're doing it for a friend or something. There is, however, a new concept stamp set that's 4x6. It's literally the 6x8 shrunk down into the 4x6. So kind of like a good gateway stamp set if someone doesn't know whether they're ready for this this really big 6x8 version, or planners if you want to take all the fun of concept stamping and bring it to a smaller planner size, traveler's notebook size. I thought this would be a really great way to play with that as well. I wouldn't go any smaller than this, because you are getting a little fiddly with these. I already had a struggle not to lose my leaf, and I have lost a couple of these. This one is even smaller, so, you know, really be careful with this one. But 4x6. The other one that stayed exactly the same are doll parts in the 4x6. That's exactly the same stamp set, just change the packaging, and the 2x6 option won't be available anymore. So unfortunately, if you did not get your hands on one of these were a part of the Playtest 2 mailer boxes. So they were originally never supposed to be sold in the store, like not like they were exclusive or anything, but I didn't have a plan to sell them in the store. I just brought them out because people seemed like they were interested. They were just created for my patrons during Playtest 2. So when I did go to put them to the store, I decided to make a larger version as well, just because some of these pieces are super tiny. I really love my small one, and I'm especially going to enjoy it now that the concept stamps are smaller, because I did love to mix the large doll parts and these big concept stamp sets. So it kind of made sense to me to make a smaller version as well. But you really want to be careful about not losing the pieces, and you want to make sure that you're okay with being fiddly. I mean, I am on certain days, but some people aren't. So I never recommend anyone get the smaller things if they don't like fiddly. Even this, the large doll parts, is still fiddly. But I do love the doll part stamp set. So this is something that we're also keeping exactly the same, just been repackaged. These two, actually all these three, so we originally had a Decora, a face base, and a She's Three-Faced stamp set, right? This is a 4x6, a 4x6, and a 2x6. We've kept them, but I've just changed them a little bit. So let's talk about the changes. I've changed the Decoras so that instead of the sunglasses that I felt like weren't really used very much. Like I see a lot of posts that I get tagged in on Instagram and throughout the creative outlet, the Workmates creative outlet on Facebook. I felt like this was one that didn't get used a lot, so I just decided to get rid of the sunglasses and add another vine. Since this one was used quite a lot, I thought to have an alternative vine would be a good idea. I changed this heart to more of a petal shape, more of a cherry blossom petal shape, just because it was one of my favorite shapes that I had in the concept stamp set. And I also took out this bunch of roses. Since we had this little abstract rose here, I added a ribbon, a little bow, because that, for some reason, I probably should have done from the beginning since I'm so obsessed with bows. I've had to reformat how some of these lay out, but they're exactly the same pieces except for those ones. And I have split the little twig antlers here. I've split them just because a lot of the time I was using mine, I would end up inking one and then inking the other and stamping them separate. So I decided just to separate those for you there. And yeah, I'm excited about those changes. Other than that, they are exactly the same stamps that I had before. The only things that changed were those 4 little details, but really there's only 3 new stamps in there. So if you already have this Decora piece, unless you're super obsessed with the bow or this little petal or this little vine, I mean, I personally wouldn't repurchase it. I'm also not going to tell you what to do, so that's up to you. Face base. I really loved this, and this was one of the original ones. This, the Decora, and the Unbothered stamp set were some of the original. I had a Charmed, I'm sure, stamp set that I just never really, you know, it was when I was kind of dabbling with the idea that I would do collections, but yeah, they weren't my absolute favorite. This face base one was one of my absolute faves, and through a lot of use, I realized that, you know, she wasn't getting as much you know, play time as this face was. It seemed like the generic face base, kind of what this is all about, was much more useful. And this one, I would kind of opt out myself because I just didn't, I wanted the top of the head to be there. Even this, I decided originally it would be a good idea not to have the top of the head so that people could draw their own hair, but even just having the top of the head was a lot easier to structure hair on top of. So I did decide to remove those 2. I've also changed the proportions of this one. I always used to lower the eyes when I would draw it, so I actually lowered the eyes on the stamp. And then I've taken that version, I've made it smaller with the little neck and shoulder attachment. I've also taken these three heads pop up in other sets. This one is from, it's a more simplified version of one of the kind of half bodies that we have in the Concepts 2 stamp set. The Concepts 3 stamp set has this side profile view of a head. It's actually looking to the other side, so it's looking to the left. This one is looking to the right. And this one is from the Doll Parts stamp set. So I'll show you here. Sorry, I just moved them off the camera. This is the more simplified version of this face right here. Just in case, because this is very detailed. I actually really like this face, and I worked really hard to keep it ethnically ambiguous, so I wanted to use that and make it kind of a face-based version of that as well. So I've tried to give you a bunch of different options in the fact that there's a 3/4 turn, a profile turn, and 3 front-on, but with different sizes. I think that's a lot to play with. I'm actually really happy with that. I think they're going to be really, really fun to work with. Can't wait to use those, because those are a bunch of new stuff I haven't tried before. So that's the new face-based set. Everything about the set is different, I will say that. So this is kind of a completely new set, just based off the idea of the original. It's kind of sad to see that one go, but I think the new one will work really well. This is the new She's 3-faced, and I've actually just put 3-faced because if you saw on my Instagram, I actually turned one of these into a boy as well, so it doesn't really have to be gender specific. They are kind of feminine. I would say there's a bit of a feminine structure to the face, but if you are someone that just likes to use this as your blueprint just to work on top of, just so you've got symmetry and then you just kind of restructure the face anyway, there's nothing to say they couldn't be male, female, both, alien, you know, whatever. You could just be using the stamp for whatever you're using it for. So this is why I've changed it to 3-faced instead of She's 3-faced, and I've actually just made them kind of like simplified. They're not as detailed as these. They're just very, very plain, which I've had a really great time with because I can add all my own features. These I actually like to color in. I thought they were really fun. And I used to change them. I didn't used to use them like exactly as they were, but they were very specific. And this would be something I would consider, you know, if I had collections in the future, like the themed ones I was talking about in the 2020 vision video, which I should probably make a 2020 revision video at this point, just because everything's changing. I would probably put something like this in a themed collection since it is so specific. But I think the changes in this, you know, having these small heads that are really nondescript, really work well for how I like to stamp, and the fact that they should fit nicely in the signature collection. Now these are two completely new ones, and these are concepts 2 and 3, and they also have 4x6 versions as well. So I'll just let you have a quick peek at the 4x6 just so we can move on to the 6x8. These are 6x8 inches. Let me just check that I'm in frame here. There we go, all good. All right, so concepts 2, concepts 3, we're looking at exactly the same idea from the first concepts. So there's 3 in total. We've got a big head, like a big face to work with, and we've got this kind of half body structure here. They're all different, and all the little decorative pieces are different as well. I'm gonna have a play with these today. Yeah, I think I'm just going to play with these ones. Oh, I might play with some of the new face base as well. I might play with this as well. Maybe I'll get the new decor. Okay, I'm going to play with all of these today. These are the ones I'm going to play with. I'll let you know as I'm playing, but this is really exciting for me because there are so many new little bits and pieces. What I loved about these was that the shapes were kind of suggestive sometimes, but other times they were completely open for interpretation. So this little loop, the little leaf, these, you know, feathers that ended up looking like bananas at one point. You know, people saw what they saw, and it was a really great way to open up your imagination and explore different parts of illustration in an abstract kind of a puzzle play way. So that's how I love to use them. Here again, we've got some that kind of make sense, just you would, you know, use them as they are, you know, the little star here. You know, this to me looks like a bow, but it also could be a fly or a weird butterfly, or depending on how you stamp things. But this one specifically that I really, really love, not just the little hair curl here, but the teapot. There's a little there's a little handle, a little teapot topper, and there's a little spout in this. Now, I don't know why, I don't know what on earth possessed me to do that, but I just loved it. I thought that wouldn't be the cutest little thing. And then I put this flower on here because I thought it'd be really cute to have them coming out of flowers, or this could be like underneath their neck. I'm really excited for this one, especially as well because this is a profile view, and I know a lot of people don't love to draw profiles. You know, concept stamping isn't just to stamp a finished illustration, it's a tool as well, right? So, you know, using this to gain a lot of practice and a lot of confidence while you're illustrating. You know, it's not wrong to stamp this out and, you know, trace over the contour of that profile a bunch of times and get a feel for it. I really think it's helped me, honestly, it's helped me going around some of these shapes over and over and over again to lock them into my own muscle memory. So I'm really excited to have something like this as well. And I've put the little half body down here with the side profile as well, just because I do like to have at least some part of a body on these stamp sets, because like heads and faces are great, I really love that, but sometimes they can feel very, you know, just head floating in the middle of a page. So even if you don't use this one, even if you just wanted to use the body and, you know, put a really massive head on it, at least there's a way to start grounding your image into some of your work. I mean, it's totally personal preference on my end, as with, you know, everything that I design in these stamp sets, but it is important for me to keep these kind of, I would say 3/4 bodies. They're really just missing legs. So, you know, 3/4 body deals, I like to keep those in there. So I'll probably play with this one today. I really wanted a teardrop shape as well. It was so funny, the more and more I would use this, the more I'd realize there was another shape that I just wish I had. Illustration for me, I like to break it down into its most simple shapes. So a lot of the time I will call out shapes when I'm teaching something. And I've got, you know, everyone's got a weird way they refer to a special, like a special shape, right? Sometimes I'll call it a sausage, or it'll be, you know, a leaf shape comes up a lot. Teardrop shape, and every time I would think about teardrop shape, I'd think, wow, if I just had that in my stamp set. So So don't let these fool you. These aren't just supposed to be decorative pieces that look good on their own. They're building blocks. Think of them as Lego, and you're kind of building the bigger picture. So I can't wait to get into that. You can tell, right? I'm actually really excited. Quits the video, just starts playing. No, I'll do that in a second. The last one I want to talk about, Concepts 2. I put another little leaf and vine motif in here, a little flower bit. I wanted a half-cracked egg. I don't know why. I think there's one thing in each that is really odd. The bone, people question why I had the bone in the first one. In the second one, I'm sure I'm going to get asked why there's a half-cracked egg in there. And the third one, I'm assuming people are going to ask what this is, although I do think the teapot is kind of weirder, so like it's very specific. But I'm really excited about the teapot. This is a chain link. If you stamp this over and over and over again, you can make a chain. I don't know why I wanted that either. Like, just these things pop up into my head and I think they'd be great for it. It's not until I use them over and over and over again that I think, oh, you know what? Maybe that wasn't something that I needed in the set. It was much like this Decora set. When I got the opportunity to redesign it, I thought, well, you know what? I don't need that heart because I've got that heart. They're practically the same size. I don't need this because I've got this. Get rid of that. And the sunglasses, they were so specific in kind of the wrong way at the end of the day. They weren't when I first designed them, but if you get to spend enough time with the product, I think it's always nice to go back and revisit it. I know Steve does this with his photography. Like after a few years, he'll go back and try and re-edit a photo, and knowing what you know now in hindsight, you do make different decisions. So this is why I'm super excited to release this and to have a play with it, because we've had a really good run of getting used to this idea of stamping out our illustrations and stamping out our blueprints to work with. And now that we have 10 stamp sets that pretty much could all work together interchangeably, if you're willing to be in that weird and whimsical place. If you're looking for realism, you really popped onto the wrong channel here. But if you're really looking to get kind of wild and wacky with it, I think this is just going to be such a fun way to play. And yeah, I think we should just get into it. That's all the information I have. These will go up on Etsy next week. They will be priced the same way that they were priced before. And yeah, they're a limited stock, but please don't fret. I will also keep restocking these because they are the signature collection. And hopefully it'll be easier for me to restock when I see which ones sell quicker than others. Yeah, I'm not really anticipating they'll all sell out, so... I shouldn't say that. Every time I say that, bad things happen and people get mad at me. So I'm whatever. It is what it is. But please don't feel pressured to buy anything. That's the one thing I do want to leave you with. This is all just extra. It's all just fun. There's nothing to say you can't draw that teardrop shape. I know you can. I know everyone watching this video could draw that shape. So even if you are following along, I remember the days when I used to follow along and I had not really much to use that I would see people using on screen, and I would try and substitute it with something like a $2 shop paint set. I would try and paint with that in mixed media. Yes, some things don't work as well, but there are so many ways to still get yourself involved without the need to purchase. Purchasing has just become such a sticky subject. More recently, I think a lot of people are really starting to get involved with their purchasing habits and understand, kind of behaviors when it comes to buying products. And I want you to make sure that you're investing in something that you like, which is also why we have tutorials that go along with these stamp sets so that you can follow along. It just doesn't end with buying the product. You can have a lot of places to start. So let's set you up. Let's set me up to have a bit of a play. I am very, very excited. Let's just get into it. Alrighty, so I'm going to grab my Dilutions large journal. This is a bit of a false start, but I thought I'd keep it in here because I could give you some tips along the way. And if you come across this issue, it's quite a common issue with stamping. First and foremost, I should say, stamps rarely ever stamp like super beautifully clean, crisp the first time you get them out. And some people attempted to sand the top of stamps. I would never recommend sanding off the top of these stamps, the photopolymer, because you will lose some of that clarity and detail in the stamping. Just stamp them out a bunch of times first, and then over time it will kind of create this kind of like a little workable level of ink that already just like sits on the top of your stamps. Not really. I mean, you can clean it off and it'll just work better. It's like kind of like there's a little coating on the photopolymer that you just need to stamp off a few times. I guess I'll say that much. I don't know, I'm not a chemist. It just seems to be the way that it works. So don't let that bother you. You just, if you have a scrap piece of paper off to the side, just double stamp everything a few times. But please, yeah, don't sand off the top of these stamps. Also, the false start in that book was because my stamp blocks, my acrylic blocks were not I couldn't get them flat onto the page when I was stamping because I was hitting the gutter of that book. There's a bit of a hump in that book, so I was finding it really difficult to get a flat, clean image just because the block wouldn't fit onto the page properly, which has happened before. It's just, I could have changed blocks, but I thought, you know what, why don't I just get out this Hobonichi? This is a Hobonichi that was gifted to me by a friend who wasn't really using it, who had started it, and there were only a few pages in there, so she had asked if I would like to use it, and I'd never had a real deal true blue Hobonichi before, except for my 5 years, so I said, at first I said no, because I was kind of nervous. I was like, I don't know, I don't need another one, and I didn't want to commit to it, and I felt guilty, but she was like, no, just use it for whatever, it's fine, and I thought, okay, great, well, this can be my new sketchbook. So it is. It's kind of like a sketchbook, glue book, smash book, whatever you like to call it. But this is where everything goes that doesn't live anywhere else, I guess you could say. Oddly enough, they become the most fascinating journals, right? So this is where I decided to stamp. The ink does kind of bleed through a little bit, but it really wasn't a problem. I was just playing today, and the first one I kind of stamped out was this one right here, kind of a fairy bit of a moment going on. Did some watercolor, got that multicolored pencil out. I think I've listed that in my Amazon shop. I'm not quite sure. That was a gift from Brit from the last Art Journaling the Magic. She's got a gift for finding these really fantastic multicolored pencils that I was very apprehensive to try at first and then fell in love with. So thank you again, Britt. Oh, another Art Journaling the Magic recommendation here was this thin line brush pen. This was recommended to me by April Gleason, who also has a YouTube channel. If you haven't checked that out, go over and check out April Gleason on YouTube. She's got just such cute illustration style, like very, very cute. And yeah, she makes YouTube videos, so you should definitely go over and watch one of those. I know this is not supposed to be like a random everyday YouTube video. I should be talking more about the product, but you know I get sidetracked. Well, I think the products speak for themselves, right? They're stamps, and we've done all of this before. I guess, now we've kind of wrapped it all up in a nice signature collection. So that's kind of what I want to stress, is that this is something that will just stay around. It's this, I'm not trying to retire any of these. It's not, if you don't get them this week, you're never going to get them. I'll try and just keep restocking these for as long as I feel like this should be the signature collection. If I want to add some, I would maybe add a few. If I wanted to, yeah, I wouldn't say I would take any away. I think I've really thought about this long and carefully, and I really wanted these to be a part of that set because you can do a ton with them. There's a lot of opportunity for play with these 10 stamp sets. Even with just one of the concept stamp sets, I've managed to play with them for over a year now. So you can get a lot out of it. I'm going to say that much. This one I've decided to stamp out and use that thin brush pen to do a very loose illustration style. I grabbed this water brush. It's a Tim Holtz detailer brush, which is one of my favorite water brushes. And I filled it with a Japanese calligraphy ink, but I also watered it down. So it's dry. It's dry. It's waterproof when it's dry, but it's a light gray instead of a really harsh black. And then I used a Pitt pastel pencil because I thought I want a really soft blend, and I didn't want to just fuss about with pencils. So I got this Pitt pastel. It's absolutely beautiful. I don't know why I don't pull that out more often. So I love that. It's smudged in with my finger, got that worked in there, and I think this just worked out really, really beautifully. There's no rhyme or reason to this. This is just play. So I'm not super worried that these kind of fall in the middle of the page, or if you look at the one on the top right, you can see it's double stamped there because I dropped the block. These things don't worry me. This is just playtime, and I'm actually glad that I got to film this for you because it's rare that I think I film the very first time I ever play with one of these products. Maybe I've done it in the past, I'm not quite sure, I possibly have, but to actually sit down and have a full playtime, it's kind of nerve-wracking because you think, well, what if I've got no good ideas and everyone's going to see that the first time you used it, you didn't even know what to do with it. Thankfully, though, I've been stamping out illustrations for
like over a year now, so it should be fine. Even more than that, since our first stamp set, so for like 3 years we've been looking at this same idea, and it's the idea that keeps on giving, because the more you get experimental with it, the more you look at those shapes as opportunities to build really eccentric illustrations, and use them as motifs to even just decorate a page. Sometimes I won't even use the face, I'll just use some of those shapes to decorate something. The more opportunity just kind of opens up for you. So this one is very abstract. I used the concept stamp set number, is that number 2? I think it's number 2. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard because I've been thinking of them as SKU numbers, so I actually didn't even know that I'd called them concepts and concepts 2 and 3 until literally I got all the packages and I was like, oh yeah, they do have names. For some reason in my head they were SKU, not even, they were, oh my goodness, it's all backwards in my head. Sorry, I've got a million things going on in my head right now. But I really like this one. I just decided to do a watercolor fill and just mix all those colors, let them do their own thing and run wild, and then use a blue pencil to kind of pull out some shadows. Shadows? Wow, I almost went real weird with that accent. Pull out some shadows, do some shading. I didn't give it its nose or mouth. I thought I wanted to, but I got to that point and I thought I could just leave this. So I did. The beauty of play, right? You just move on when you're finished. One of the best things about this is that stamping out the blueprint, I mean, it can disappear. Like, you could look at this and you think, wow, what an odd illustration. Like, what's going on in his head? Technically nothing. When I was, what's going on in my head when I did this was, does this shape go here? Does this shape go here? So you get a lot of credit for being quite imaginative, even though you're not really doing anything at all other than just playing Lego, which, it does involve a bit of imagination, a bit of creativity, but it's a really different part of your brain. You're not pulling from visual recall. You're pulling from puzzle, like kind of that abstract place of like spatial awareness and symmetry, and like it's that puzzle play place. So it's really interesting. And this is the last piece that I'll do. Oh, I love that one. I love that. I was so happy that I did this. I did it and I was like, oh, I think this is a good idea. I hope it actually stamps out well, because it worked on the computer and I thought, oh, if this doesn't work in real life, this is such a weird piece. And it totally stamped out. I screwed it up the first time, but the rest, like, I'm just envisioning chains all over my book now. So, really happy with that piece. And I think that cone came in handy as well. I did have an idea. I wanted to do an ice cream with one of the heads, but I completely forgot. So make a mental note, James, do ice cream next time. I'm very, very happy with these. I hope you... if you already have your stamp sets, I hope you don't feel pressured to buy any of these, because they are just an extension of what you already have. You can still play this way with what you have. And even if you don't have any of my stamp sets, if you have something else, like if you have a stamp set that's just full of shapes and you have some faces that you can draw or you can cut out of a magazine, you can do exactly what I'm doing on this video. Please just take that as a lesson. Don't feel the need to buy the stamp set just so you can do this. I would love for you just to have fun and see what you can get up to, because it really is such a great way to extend your mind and to have a really fun and intuitive play. You never know what you're going to get out of it too. I mean, you could totally spark something that sends you on a bit of a creative frenzy for a few weeks. I know I've definitely done that before, where it's really sent me off in a new direction. I ended up teaching workshops about this because I loved it so much. So yeah, I think really get into it. If stamping is your thing, if you really enjoy stamping, or if you're an artist and you're looking for a way to unlock some more of that abstract thinking, I think this is such a really good way to bridge the gap between kind of paper crafting and fine arts. It's something that involves this skill of illustration, to know how to draw and have this idea of using fine art materials like watercolors and graphite and pastels and stuff. You can really get artistic with it, but the idea itself, the technique to it, is so rooted in our paper crafty kind of scrapbooking world. And just getting our stamps out, we're just it seems like the two wouldn't go together, but it's such a fun an exciting process. So if you haven't done it before, I hope you give it a go and check out some of the other tutorials on the channel. Like I said, doesn't need to be these stamps, but stamping is a good way to try this, because you can, if you don't like the first one, you can just get another piece of paper and start again. Otherwise, yeah, these will be up in the Etsy store hopefully sometime next week. I'll let you know. I'll announce it on social media, and then from there, that'll be our last time on Etsy before we move over to my new website, which I'll endeavor to get nice and prepared for you before you hit it up, because I still don't know what I'm doing. Let's be real. I'm going to figure it out after I finish this video. Anyway, thank you for watching. That is my new signature collection of jlbCREATIVE stamps, 10 stamp sets, some old and repackaged and some completely brand new. I look forward to sharing more of that with you in the future, and until then, thank you for watching. Bye.